Hello and welcome to the part 2 of the episode Behind the Escalation China's 2027-2035 War Blueprint, Taiwan Stakes, and the Indo Pakistan Flashpoint. So, in the first part of the episode, we have discussed the recent situation between the Indo Pak tensions, briefly touched upon the part of 2035 strategy of China, and now we'll be taking a deep dive into China's war blueprint and how things are interconnected along with the Taiwan stakes. So, welcome back, sir, to the episode. And we are great to have you again.
Jai Hind Omkarji. It is my pleasure and privilege to be on your channel once again.
Absolutely, sir. Great to have you again. So, yeah, continuing with our conversation. So, some many analysts, including yourself, have pointed to 2035 as a critical year of a possible China Pakistan two front assault on India. Why 2035 specifically? And what strategic, military, and political developments are driving this timeline?
Well, after President Xi Jinping became China's president for the first time on 14 March 2013, he realized one thing that China has enormous economic power. And now was a time to realize China's military aims. Few months after his becoming the president for the first time, on 8th July 2013, there was an article published in Win Vi Pu, which is the Chinese government newspaper published from Hong Kong. The heading of the article was Six Wars That China Will Fight in the Next 50 Years. Now, the first three of these six wars is the war for Taiwan, second is the war for Spratly Islands, and the third is the two front war with Pakistan on India. And the timelines are very specifically mentioned in this article. Now, we all know that in China, no one can speak or write a word without the approval of the Chinese Communist Party.
Straight,
So,
yes.
an article of this magnitude and nature appearing with specific military aims, specific timelines, was a clear pointer of the things ahead. But as usual, America and the West did not pay much credence to this article. Few months after this article was published, in September 2013, President Xi Jinping went on his second foreign visit to Kazakhstan, wherein he announced the Belt and Road Initiative, that time named as One Belt, One Road. Now, I would also like to mention at this stage that before the article was published in July 13 in Win Vipu, few days after he became the president on 14th March 2013, on 26th March 2013, he went to Russia on his first foreign visit after becoming the president for the first time. There, he discussed the Belt Road Initiative plan with President Putin, and a tacit approval was taken from Russia. And then, like I said, in September, he had his second foreign visit as the head of state to Kazakhstan, where the road part or the land part of the Belt Road Initiative was announced. Next month in October 2013, he visited Indonesia, where he announced the sea plan of the Belt Road Initiative. Now, that time, the world thought that it is purely for economic purposes, which China officially states till date. But latent in this Belt Road Initiative was a military advantage that would accrue to China in the times ahead, as this infrastructure, built for civil purposes and economic purposes, would eventually be used by China's military whenever the need would arise. And then President Xi Jinping started working right earnest for the successful implementation of the Belt Road Initiative. Now, in 2015, President Xi Jinping announced the first set of defense reforms for the PLA, or the People's Liberation Army of China, which comprises the Army, Navy, and the Air Force. And next year, on 1st February 2016, the PLA was reorganized into theater commands. It was made into five theater commands, The two most important for our conversation is the Eastern Theater Command overlooking Taiwan and the Western Theater Command overlooking India. Now, after the PLA was reorganized into the five theater commands, Xi Jinping was unable to reorbit and remove his forces, which are already deployed as per the old organization, to the new locations because it would invite a lot of international criticism. So he waited for an opportunity and he got the opportunity the next year. In 2017, if you remember, there was a Doklam standoff between
Yes.
China, Bhutan, and India over the Doklam Plateau. This standoff lasted for 73 days. Eventually, China pulled back. The world media and the Indian media declared this as a big victory for India. But what escaped notice was that in this 73-day standoff between the three countries, China had scored a major military victory. Unknowingly and unnoticed by the media at large, in these 73 days, China moved its forces within its country for redeployment as per the newly announced theater commands. So now the Chinese military was deployed as per the new theater commands the way Xi Jinping wanted. So
Great.
clearly everything was set for the future military operations of China. Now, the three military objectives for China in the next one decade are Taiwan in 2027, Spratly Islands in 2029, and a two front war with Pakistan on India in 2035. So, out of the six wars mentioned in that article of Win Wipu, only three will be fought in Xi Jinping's tenure because Xi Jinping's age is 73 as on date. The average lifespan of a Chinese male is 79. So Xi Jinping has maximum a decade or so in power. After that, old age and health issues will prevent him from being in power. So Xi Jinping knows he has one decade where he can make a name for himself in China. Now there's a lot of legacy burden on Xi Jinping, which he
Yes.
has to prove by waging these three wars. One is in 2018, the clause that was there in the Chinese constitution that a person can be a president of China only for two terms was removed, thereby enabling Xi Jinping to be the president for life. And the next, what Xi Jinping did, he ins- he embedded his thoughts called the Xi's thoughts in the Chinese constitution. Such a thing has happened only once when Mao's thoughts have been embedded in the Chinese constitution, but that also long after Mao Zedong died. For the first time in Chinese history, a serving and a living president thoughts have been embedded in the constitution. So definitely there's a lot of legacy pressure on Xi Jinping to prove to the Chinese citizens that why he should be the president of life, why his thoughts have been embedded. So he has to do something unique and great in the Chinese citizens' eyes, which puts him
Yes.
in a pedestal higher than Mao Zedong's pedestal. So there's a lot of pressure, and the next Chinese Communist Party's meeting would be in 2028. So when he faces the next CCP's meeting 2028, he would have to tell the Politburo that why he brought in such revolutionary changes in the Chinese constitution which favor him. So all the timelines point to 2027 for the war on Taiwan, which I said earlier has been said by the US CIA director in 2023. The war for Spratly
Yes.
Islands will not be a full-fledged war because Spratly Islands, as we know, is a largely uninhabited set of islands with few military posts of few countries. But still, it will be a war because it will be the annexation of a particular place which doesn't belong to China legally. And the
Yes.
third and the last war in Xi Jinping's tenure would be the two front war in 2035, wherein Pakistan would first attack
Against
for
India.
Jammu Kashmir and China then for Arunachal Pradesh because Arunachal Pradesh has over a period of time become of immense significance to China.
Yes. Just on the same part, sir, China and Pakistan. So, how does this alliance serve broader regional and global ambitions, particularly in the Indo-Pacific region? Because I believe Indo-Pacific is the region where US and a lot of NATO member states also have quite a lot of interest. So, what are your thoughts on this issue as well?
Well, thrice earlier, China has tried to annex Taiwan, which are called as the Taiwan Strait Crisis. The first Taiwan Strait Crisis, the second Taiwan Strait Crisis, and the third Taiwan Strait Crisis. Each time, China had to suffer the defeat or had to withdraw back because of
Yes,
two reasons. USA had nuclear weapons, and for the first two Taiwan Strait Crisis, China didn't have nuclear weapons. And in all the three Taiwan Strait Crisis, USA had a much bigger navy than China had. And as you all know, Taiwan is an island nation. So, where the
yes,
navy will play a major role if China wants to wage a war on Taiwan.
yes,
So, China started building its nuclear weapons after the second Taiwan Strait crisis. It started enhancing its naval might. Today, it has the world's largest navy. And as we talk today,
yes,
Omkarji, though China has the largest navy in the world, as on today, two aircraft carriers, six nuclear submarines, and 200 warships are being constructed in the six naval dockyards of China, despite having the world's largest navy. Now, China understood some time back, also understood that it faces a Malacca dilemma. Now, what is the Malacca dilemma? 80% of China's trade, worth $4 trillion every year, passes through the Strait of Malacca, which is between the countries of Indonesia and Malaysia. China is well aware in case there's a successful naval blockade by the US and the Indian Navy, its logistics will take a big hit. So, to
absolutely.
overcome the Malacca dilemma, it propounded the China Pakistan Economic Corridor, part of the Belt Road Initiative, wherein a land route was to be constructed from Xinjiang province of China to Quetta in Balochistan of Pakistan, so that in case the Strait of Malacca was blockaded by the US and the Indian Navy, it would have an alternate land route for its logistics to move.
Yes,
On 20th April 2015, Xi Jinping visited Pakistan for the first time, and he said during this visit that the friendship between China and Pakistan is higher than the highest mountains, deeper than the deepest oceans, and sweeter than the sweetest honey. And it was in this visit that the CPEC was signed between China and Pakistan. And ever since, China has now stood rock solid behind Pakistan in everything, as in this present India Pakistan standoff. Today, 81% of the Pakistani military equipment comes from China. So much so is their friendship now that in the year 2021, for the first time, for the first time, Pakistani military officers started getting posted to the Western Theater Command of China in Chengdu. It is normal for
yes,
foreign army officers to go to other countries for courses or instruction or for training purposes, but never are they posted to a foreign military's headquarters. And also in 2021, there was a direct optical fiber cable laid between the Western Theatre Command Chengdu to the general headquarters of the Pakistan Army in Rawalpindi for uninterrupted communication. And clearly, lot has happened after that. But for paucity of time, there's been a lot of military deepening between China and Pakistan. And it is clearly with the aim of the two front war on India. Also, is a famous saying in English, an enemy's enemy is my friend. So, for
yes.
China and Pakistan, for both, India is an enemy,
Enemy.
and that's the reason they have got into deeper and closer relations.
Absolutely. I think that's a very interesting insight that you have provided, primarily looking at the military exchange. So, from your perspective, how should we connect Taiwan 2027 scenario, China's militarization in the South China Sea, and its growing influence in Pakistan to understand the full spectrum of threats India might face in the coming decade? And are we looking at an integrated long term strategy rather than an isolated regional move?
Well, you know, every country that is to go to war should realize one thing: it cannot back upon any other nation for any aid or assistance. Examples are
Yes,
Ukraine. Example is Israel.
yes,
USA has not sent a single soldier to any of its allies in the last 2 decades. It has given money and defense equipment, which it extracts back in a much larger scale, as is evident from the mineral deal with Ukraine, but it has never sent a soldier in the last 2 decades. So to expect any aid and assistance in form of military soldiers from any country, well, definitely no. No one is going to send it. We have to do what we have to do on our own.
on
And
yes,
the fact that I just quoted earlier, the statement on the Indian Army Chief of the two front war being a reality, clearly shows that the Indian government and the Indian military is cognizant of the two front threat. We are
yes,
working on it, but also one has to admit the reality, which are written in my book also. China is 3 decades or 30 years ahead of India in military preparedness. And if Pakistan's military might is also put to China, Pakistan may have a small military, but it does have a combat power. It is not a terrorist organization. Its military is not a
yes,
terrorist organization. So definitely the weightage of the combined China-Pakistan military power becomes much more than the Indian military power. But we have
yes,
1 decade. Lot of changes have taken place. Lot of changes are taking place. Some of it is in the public domain. Most of it is not in the public domain, for obviously for security reasons. But definitely the next 1 decade will be the game changer. And like I said,
absolutely.
if India is able to crush Pakistan militarily in the next 1 decade, and the way we are moving ahead with our defense preparedness, India will be able to tackle the two front war threat of 2035. So everything depends and hinges in the next 1 decade.
Yes. And just to, I mean, add on, this is the possibly the final question from my end. Given this evolving two front threat from China and Pakistan, what kind of long term reforms, especially militarily, technologically, diplomatically, must India pursue starting now to be ready for the 2035 flashpoint? And are there any lessons India must learn from how Taiwan is preparing for 2027? I know the geography is very different, but still.
Well, first is that we have to increase our defense budget. Our defense
Yes,
budget has been decreasing with every year. To tackle only Pakistan is enough, but now we are faced with the two front war threat. In
yes,
2019, our defense budget was 2.5% of GDP, which is reduced this year to 1.9% of the GDP. We need to
yes,
make our defense budget minimum 3% of the GDP for the two front war threat. Chanakya, the famous Indian military strategist, had centuries back said, the strength of a nation's military power flows from the nation's treasury. Unquote. This clearly means we need money to make our military more superior in all forms. Second,
yes,
we have to look at the diplomatic aspect too, at the regional diplomatic aspect. On the international arena, we are well appreciated, well respected the world over. But at the region level, things are totally different. India has 8 neighbors. Out of them, two are sworn enemies: China, Pakistan. Let us take them out. Balance out of six, except for the tiny nation of Bhutan, rest all five are firmly in Chinese grip. And the way
yes,
Bhutan is in advanced talks with China, anytime soon they can announce their friendship treaty and the diplomatic relations, which doesn't exist between Bhutan and China as of now. So, out of 8 neighbors, there's only one nation called Bhutan which is totally inclined towards India. We need to work more on the regional diplomacy. And
yes,
third, like I rightly said, and third thing is we need to have the whole of the nation's approach for the two front war
yes,
or even for a single front war. You see, when Pakistan does something, we react, right? But after some time, we forget. Then many of us Indians get happy when we see India Pakistan playing a cricket match and Champions Trophy in Dubai. Well, an enemy is an enemy. You can't be playing
yes,
cricket with him. You can't be trading with him. And then for some time, when there's a military conflict or standoff, then we focus towards the war preparedness towards that nation. So what we need now, India on priority, is the national security strategy to be framed and formulated and put in public domain, so that we as a nation are clear who our external and internal enemies are. And connected with this is, in June 2020, the Galwan Valley incident happened with China, in which China killed 20 of our soldiers. That year, our trade with China was 87.5 billion American dollars. Ironically, after 2020, our trade with China has increased year on year. Last year, our trade with China was 128.6 billion American dollars. We should realize as a nation that every dollar that we are trading with China, part of this China is using to strengthen its military, which in the times
Yes.
ahead will wage a war on us. We are indirectly strengthening China's military by increasing our trade with China.
Yes.
So this all can be clear if we have the national security strategy made and put in the public domain. So these three are the points which I feel should be done to tackle the two front war threat, which is after a decade.
I believe the national security point that you mentioned. So there are gaps in India's, I think, ecosystem, whether it's education, technology, which all converge together to basically strengthen the defense system as well of India. And I believe the national security strategy, if we shut down our doors for Chinese trade, I believe the manufacturing sector will flourish because India will have no other option but to, accelerate its manufacturing sector. That's a very huge gap, I believe, because we are very much dependent on China for electronic goods and several other stuffs. So I believe once the national security strategy is in place, it can serve as a trigger mechanism to basically, it will create a basically a domino effect all across multiple sectors, and it will converge towards one point, that is all technologically advanced systems, all manufacturing units finally converging to one point and enhancing the defense systems of India. And I believe I hope it happens very soon, because I believe this is a very valid point that you have mentioned during the conversation. So yeah, I believe we are now at the end of the episode, the part two. And so, thank you very much, sir, for providing this valuable insights. I think this topic was very broad, but I would love to again, record a separate podcast with you on the extension of this topic. And as we see more and more developments, we'll see how these things proceed ahead. And really looking forward to have you again on the podcast, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Omkarji. It was really my honor to be on your esteemed platform to air my views. And I would also like to thank you for the wonderful questions posed, which are a matter of concern not only to the
Yes.
1.42 billion Indian citizens, but to every global citizen, the way China is increasing its military mind and having expansionist plans. Thank you so much once again.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.